I hope you are having a beautiful start to the week. And if you're joining us from the United States, I hope especially that you had a lovely Thanksgiving and really enjoyed time with your family and your friends. If you're not joining us from the United States, well, listen, I hope you still had a lovely weekend with your family and friends. Big hi to Jennifer and Giacomo and Ava and Andrew and Jim and Luz and Courtney and everyone who is gathered in live. It's so good to have you here because I always say I learn so much from you. You are always putting great tips, tactics, recommendations over here in the chat. So just know that there's loads of more resources than just what we are sharing here on screen today. The comments section is full of other great resources for you. You may or may not remember that we actually tried to have this chat a few months ago. And it's a live show when the weather can dictate whether the show goes on. And in that case, we had a very, very bad thunderstorm and I lost power. Yeah, lost power. It was sad for everybody. It was sad for me. But, we can't control the rain. Just like I always say, we can't control the algorithms of social media. So we can't control the algorithm. We can't control the weather. But the good news is that Veronica was super, super kind and made time to join us here again today. And her subjects that she talks about and her expertise makes sense no matter what time of year it is, but especially now as we drill down towards the end of the year and we start thinking about saving money, making good investment decisions, setting ourselves up for financial success in 2024, all the good things. So I hope that you have your pen and paper full of questions because I don't want to be the one asking all the questions. I'll share. I'm a good sharer. I'll share some rounds with you. So wherever you are, I know Sony's coming in from Houston and I'm coming in from Austin and we have Ava coming in from New York. But from wherever you are, I hope you'll help me welcome Veronica back to coffee with us.
Hi, it's great to be back.
You are so kind to join us. So thank you for bearing with our technical difficulties.
We've all had them, so not a problem at all. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you and to see everybody.
I'm so excited for this discussion because I just feel like anytime we talk about financials or investments or money, one of two things happen. People either cringe and they're kind of like scared of Veronica, like, whoa, like Veronica's gonna ask me hard questions, or they're like leaning in on every single word you say. So I'm curious for you, what was your relationship like with investing and money and kind of tackling a subject that for a lot of people is kind of icky?
Well, it's pretty personal. When I was 11 years old, my father died suddenly, leaving my mom a young widow with an 11-year-old myself and my brother, who was 13 at the time. And my dad had his own businesses and was very involved in the family. He did the family finances. My mom didn't know anything or not even how to write a check. She didn't know anything. So as soon as he died, she was very lost right away. And she had a huge learning curve. I remember her sitting at the kitchen table and crying because she didn't know how to fill out a check. Her sister and my aunt and some family friends, a group of women actually, rallied around her and said, look, you need to get it together. You've got two young kids who need their financial futures taken care of. You need to get a job. You need to learn all this about investing, she knew how to save, interestingly, but she didn't know anything about investing or just managing day-to-day budgets. And so it was a very traumatic time for the family and traumatic time for her. Because the last situation you want to learn money and personal finances is when you're under distress. That's a really tough situation. fast forward a couple of years, I'll spare you all the details, but fast forward a couple of years, and by the time I got to when I was going away to college, one of the things my mom said to me was like, listen, never be like me. You need to be as savvy financially as you can be. You need to be as independent financially as you can be. And all along that time, as she was learning, she was actually teaching me as a teenager. I knew how to balance the checkbook. I knew how to handle credit cards. I knew how to think about investing. And as soon as I could get a 401k in my first job, I knew to put as much money as I could into it, even though I wasn't making a lot at the time. So she took her lack of knowledge and how she got up to speed on that knowledge, and she made sure that I was never going to be in a situation that she was, unfortunately. And so because of that, I became really passionate about learning about money and budgeting and saving and all those good things. And because of that tough time we went through.
Well, and it sounds like you were exposed from such a young age too, which I think is also helpful. And I know some people who are joining us today have kids, and might be thinking about when is a good time to discuss things with kids, whether those kids are 10 years old or whether those kids are 21 years old. So I'm curious, and you yourself have kids, and I'm curious when you think those conversations should take place, or how should they take place, or what your personal strategy is around that.
I think they're so important. I think we can't start young enough. I have a 2.5-year-old, as you know, and he doesn't understand the concept of money, nor would I expect him to. But we're working on things in daily life to varying degrees of success about waiting, right? So much of our spending, I think, in our society, myself included, is based on, it's predicated on, I want this now, I'm going to have this now, I don't want to wait. And so I think if we learn to wait, take a beat in other areas of our life, whether it's maybe we don't have the second or third snack right away, we wait till we're a little bit more full if we're a kid, or if we're a little bit older and we want another set of magnet tiles, maybe we wait another month, or we wait for the big holiday to buy those tiles because we've got plenty already. So instilling that idea of patience for ourselves and for our kids is very important at any age. If some people have no choice, I want to be clear on that. Some people can't afford to just spend whatever they want when they want. A lot of people fall in that situation. And in terms of teaching him, at a very young age, we started giving away the stuff he doesn't use. So whether it's old toys or barely used toys or clothes, there's so many children in need. And so I say to him, we're going to give away some of these things that you have because they're in nice condition, and there's plenty of other kids who don't have anything and need it. Or if there's the food drive at school, we make sure he tries to hold the bag as he walks into to daycare to give some of that food away. So doing those little acts of philanthropy, getting him to think about other people is important. When he's a little bit older, I hope to volunteer in a soup kitchen with him for different occasions, so he gets to see that there's other people who aren't as fortunate as he is. And then hopefully the idea is having an awareness of what other people go through will make you a little bit more grateful for what you do have and inspire you to also maybe live a little bit more of a minimalist life. Now, like I said, I'm a new parent, so we'll see how all this goes.
Well, and I also think you touched on a really good point about patience and really saying, do I need this right now? Is this a necessity, or is this a nice to have? And I think patience, not only in decision making like that, but just patience with yourself as you round out the year, really taking time to say, okay, let's sit with all of my expenses for the year. Let's sit with everything that I'm spending money on. And instead of getting either frustrated or intimidated and saying like, I'll do that in January, or I don't want to mess with that now. having the patience to really sit down and say, no, I'm going to set aside, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, to, kind of reconcile or look at 2023, what I spent, what I made, what I'm spending on. I'm curious, do you offer any pieces of advice, maybe to like your close friends or examples that you've seen in your line of work, where in December, is there a guide or tactic or tip that you use to kind of look over your finances for the year that you just had and maybe going forward into the new year?
December's a great time and to look back, especially if your spending has a little bit been higher than what you expected, especially so many of us are heading into a big spending time with the holidays. Whatever holiday you celebrate, there's probably a lot of gifts you need to get. And so looking back before you start buying a bunch of gifts that you may regret the credit card bill for, you might see that credit card bill in January and you start to feel overwhelmed. Take time, look back on how much you spent throughout the year. And maybe if it is too much, maybe this is a time to say to some family members, like, maybe we should put a spending limit. Maybe we should say, $50, $100 each for gifts. Or maybe this is the year where the adults in the family don't exchange gifts. We just focus on the kids and we set a spending limit for the kids as best as we can, just to minimize that regret we might feel in January. Also, spending is somewhat inevitable around this time of year. And so one of the things my husband recently did, he needed to get a new pair of scrubs, and he was waiting for the Black Friday sales. He waited 2 months to get a new pair of scrubs because he's like, I don't want to pay full price. And so if you know you're going to need to get those gifts, wait for that sale day if you can. And just to pace out your expenses, but putting a Christmas budget or a holiday budget in place now before you start going online or start hitting those stores can be very helpful. You may not hit it exactly, but if I say I'm going to spend $400 this holiday season on all the gifts combined, it might help you stay close to that number or whatever number you feel is going to be right for your budget.
I think that that's huge to kind of have a plan going in. There are times in life where you can wing it, and spending is not one of those times.
Right, because that bill always comes and you have to pay it. And interest rates on credit cards have just gone up so much that you're going to be financing that debt at 20%, maybe higher. And that can really set you back. It can, once you get into this cycle of credit card debt, it's really tough to get out, especially if you're not getting a pay raise that is commensurate with inflation. Inflation has gone up so much. Everything costs so much more. And some of us are getting raises and some of us aren't. But when you're in that situation, you have to think a little bit harder about your spending.
I think that's a huge point. And I'm an avid reader of the writing that you put out. And my husband and I take a lot of the tips that you talk about and put them into practice, whether it comes to housing and interest rates or it comes to, credit card debt. But one of the tips that you talked about that we started to practice is we actually started to, in December, we will print out like the last 2 or 3 months of our credit card bills. And we will get a highlighter. I actually have it here because we're going to be doing it next week. And we start to highlight things that are reoccurring monthly, that it's like, do you really need, especially now, like I'm guilty of it, Hulu and Paramount Plus and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime and Netflix, and, really starting to go through, all these little charges seem small at the time, but actually 12 months out of the year, if you have a bunch of them, they get into the thousands pretty quickly. Are there any other small tips that you would advise people to do come the end of the year to help them kind of tighten up?
One of the things I'm thinking of doing, we'll see if I actually have the discipline to do it, is to remove some of the apps off my phone that help me to easily spend. Not gonna,
Mm.
maybe I'm picking on Amazon, but I'm a Prime member like many of us, and I've got the app right on my phone, and I notice having it on right on my phone makes it so much easier to spend than it would be if I had to log on to, my laptop or desktop and sit there and go through the motions. And so that might be a step I'm going to take. We'll see if I've got the discipline as a mom of a 2.5-year-old. Sometimes it's just, you just want the easiest route possible. So that's one way, kind of uninstall those apps, look at the expenses, and then maybe just a simple step you could take now. I'm a big fan of doing just one thing. Maybe it's one thing a week, or maybe it's one thing a day, depending on how much time you have. But maybe it's calling up the credit card company and saying, hey, I'm a good customer. I try to pay on time. I'd love to see if I can get a lower interest rate if you are carrying a balance. Or if you got a big medical bill from your doctor and your insurance didn't pick up as much as you expected, or maybe it's calling the doctor's office to see if you can renegotiate a little bit how much you're going to have to pay, or working out a payment plan with a hospital if you don't expect to be able to pay that bill. Taking that one step, whatever it is, I would recommend addressing that. Address what's weighing on you, because no matter how successful you are, I think so many of us have some sort of financial worry or stress that's really weighing on us and making us think a little bit, when we're lying there asleep at night, like, what is the thing that is keeping me up? What is the thing that, if I lost my job, or if I lost, a client, would put me in a tough financial position. So trying to do what you can now to minimize any potential stress later can be really helpful.
I think that's huge. And, I had sent my mom lives in Florida. She's retired, so she has some time. And I had sent her one of your things, and you had talked about that small tip that you just gave, that you can negotiate with like doctors' offices. I had no idea. Like, I was like, well, no clue. Didn't even know that was a thing. And my mom sort of took that advice and then took it to like the next level. She like one-upped me. She now has she has like a physical calendar, but she now marks, I think it's like every like quarter or every 6 months. She calls like AT&T. I think she has like a Sirius radio subscription. And I don't know if they're used to getting like numbers from Florida calling, but like she argues with them. Like, she'll be like, I live in Florida, I'm over the age of 70 and this AT&T bill is too high. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, like, Mom, you're kind of crazy. Like, this is crazy. But then, like, joke's on me, because every time she has called, they offer her some sort of, oh, it's a retention promotion that we're doing, or, oh, it's lucky you called. We have a winter, program that we're calling. And every single time she has called, they give her some sort of promotion or discount, which is
That's
wild.
awesome. That's wild. That's awesome. I think what she's doing is so smart, because even if you have the money, why pay the companies more than you have to, right? Ask the question. And I think what she's doing is saying, she's realizing that the worst they can say is no. If you call up and ask for some sort of discount and they say we've nothing available, but there could very well be something available, and you took advantage of that. So I think that's so smart that she's doing that. I think it's also really smart. A technique she's using is sounds like she's sharing a bit about her personal story. She's saying, I'm a senior citizen, maybe I'm on a fixed income, or maybe I'm not working anymore, so I don't have an income coming in, and I live in Florida, and maybe I've got some other situation, whether it's medical bills or something else I need to deal with. And she's sharing that personal story. And research often shows that if you make that human connection with the person you are trying to negotiate with, if you humanize yourself and share a little bit of your story, you have a better chance of building that rapport. And if you have that rapport going with the other person on the other side of the phone, you'll have a better chance of getting a discount. Another thing that the research has shown, which is very interesting, is how in general, taking the friendly but firm but nice approach is going to net you better results when you're negotiating than it would be if you went in guns blazing. And nobody likes to get yelled at. Nobody likes to be lectured. And it can feel very frustrating to deal with some of these companies. But when you think about it, you might be the 10th person that's yelled at them today and said, I want this, I want that. And they're probably not making a ton of money. Many of the experts I spoke to said, treat them with some respect, some kindness, and you might luck out. In addition, you might also luck out if you end up with somebody surly on the other side of the phone, even when you are trying to be nice. I'm sure your mom has discovered this too. Maybe you say, okay, thanks for your help. You hang up the phone and then you call back in 2 hours, or you call back the next day, because you might get a different customer service person who is a lot more congenial, in a better mood, might be able to help you. And so you might want to try your luck on a different time, a different day.
1,000%. I feel like sugar gets you a lot farther than spice in those situations. Yes. And just making the time. I'm glad that Gil brought up this point of, really, if you can set aside, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, or to Veronica's point, maybe you're just setting aside 15 minutes, for multiple days or something like that, you can really make those small micro movements towards a big number. And in Gil's example, calling the TV provider, the phone provider, the internet provider, a little patience cut their family expenses by $300 a month, which,
awesome.
300 times 12 months in a year, that's some money. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a vacation.
That is huge. I love this question from Giacomo. Veronica, if for any young people that might be joining us today and they're new to the working world, I know you spoke a little bit about maxing out your 401k, but for anybody maybe who's international or that plan isn't provided, what are some other kind of money saving tips that you would give them?
I would say shopping around, no matter what it is so important. Whether you're shopping for a new car or shopping for, for people in the U.S. looking for financial aid or a mortgage, all of those things that you may not think are negotiable are negotiable. And even abroad, there's so much that might be negotiable that you don't realize. And so making that ask, doing a little research, approaching it in a nice way, and seeing what better deal you can get. Often playing competitors against each other can help you save money, and doing it in a way that you feel comfortable, that is true to yourself. In terms of young people and also people who are a little bit older, I would say it's so important to have that emergency savings account in place. I would argue even before, there's so much conventional advice that says max out retirement savings, whatever that is, 401k, IRA, or what have you. And if you have something else abroad, and that's great. But I would say if you have the ability to is contribute up until your company's match. And then after that, even before that, make sure you're putting money away for a rainy day, whether that is, your car breaks down and you need to fund a repair, or you get a bigger medical bill than you expected, or you need to help a family member that you didn't expect to need to help. And so having that money will give you that greater sense of security and ability to survive if something was to happen that was an unexpected expense. I think one of the other big money saving things too, and this is a tough one, but so many of the financial advisors and financial planners I speak to say, so many people spend way too much on food, whether it's meals out or groceries. I would argue it's probably more meals out. We're all so busy, so much easier often to just go to the lunch place and buy a quick salad or get the coffee. All of those things add up. And I myself struggle with this as a working mom. But I would say, even when I wasn't a mom, I struggled with this. And because you get tired, there's other more exciting things to do than make your lunch the night before if you're in an office. But I would say, again, be patient with yourself, but set a small goal. Maybe instead of buying the salad from the deli or from the Pret or what have you 4 days a week, maybe you just do it 3 days a week at first and see how that goes. Bring your lunch the other day, or find a way to stomach the office coffee if you have to, rather than having to spend some money on some coffee out. In addition, make sure you're taking advantage. If you are working for an employer, make sure you're taking advantage of all that company's benefits, whether that's reimbursement for physical fitness expenses or transportation, getting some tax breaks using your flexible spending account or dependent care account if you have dependents. Making sure you're maxing out everything your company is offering you to help you save in a less painful way, which the FSA and the dependent care account can really help you with.
Can be a huge help. And I would say one piece of advice that I got early on that was, I don't need it anymore, but at the time it was helpful for me. I actually got a separate bank account and would kind of siphon off money into that, because similar to what you were saying with like your Amazon cart and whatever, if I don't see it, this is some girl math. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. It's like off in the ether, so I can't spend it. So I would just kind of put it away in another account, and that way it would just sort of disappear every month and I wasn't seeing. And that way I had that sort of, rainy day 3-month fund kind of growing without me feeling like, every month I'm moving it myself and there's like a pain there. It was just automatic. And
that's so smart. That's great. That's a really great idea that helps people. Yeah, you move the money, you don't feel it. And then also, if you can make it difficult for you to take that money out or transfer it back, if there's a way to do that, definitely recommend that, or almost temporarily forget about the account, even though you've got it listed somewhere. And then also, there's been research that shows if you say you have that other online savings account where that rainy day fund money is going, there's been research that shows if you name the account, it may help you prevent you from rating it. So if you say, this is my car repair account, or this is my vacation account, or what have you, it helps you. It gives you just another beat before you start taking that money for like the new pair of shoes or whatever you're tempted to at that moment.
And for those people that might say, okay, like a car account or, vacation account, some people might have like student loan repayment or something like that. I'm glad Cody brings up this point. If you do have some debt, whether that is from college loans or that's from credit card debt, what are your strategies around kind of tackling that or consolidating it?
Yes, that's huge. College loans, as we know, started up again. After that nice pause we had on the federal. Yes, my strategy would be to hit the high interest debt the first or the most. So say you've got a credit card debt at like 19-20% interest rate and then APR, and then you've got your college loans that you've got many years to pay off. I would say you got to keep paying all of them, but maybe you're doing just the minimum. If you've got a very finite pot of money, I would say do the minimum on the college loans because you've got some time on those and the interest rates are generally a lot lower than the credit card. And then if you can bulk up on your payments for the credit card to knock that out, that would be the better use of your money in terms of paying off that debt. it's tough to have multiple financial goals, but if you can also be saving a bit towards emergencies every month, that would be great. So it's tricky having all these different buckets you have to fund or pay down when it comes to debt. But the good thing about the college loans is that you do have a longer runway to pay those off, whereas the credit card debt just it comes for you. It comes for you.
It comes for you and it holds no prisoners. And you're
Nope.
like, ah.
Yeah.
Rachel's pointing out that there's a debt repayment plan, powerpay.org. Didn't know about that. So thanks for that, Rachel. Appreciate it. That's a good one. I'm curious for you, Veronica, is there something in your kind of work or industry sphere that you have started using recently or kind of getting involved with that you just absolutely love, whether it's like a project management tool or a specific app that's been helping you? What's kind of been on your obsessed list lately?
Oh gosh. One of the things I've been doing in terms of my job, like I use a lot of LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. I use a lot of LinkedIn for my job, and just trying to detoxify a little bit tech wise these days. And so, I mean, LinkedIn's usually helpful for me, but there's also a lot of unhelpfulness that sometimes comes through, whether it's personal messages that have like nothing to do with what I would be writing about, or just a lot of things that seems to come through are these unsolicited meeting requests. Like, I'm going to put time on your calendar. It's probably an amount of spam, but that used to like bother me a lot. And now I try to ignore some of the noise that's out there. And so that's helped me unplug, because so many of us have so many things coming at us. We've got, our LinkedIn messages, we've got our Slack, we've got our G chat, we've got our emails, like multiple emails. Like sometimes it just seems like such a fire hose of information. And so what I will try to do is close out some of those different programs during the day and for at least a couple hours here and there if I need to do that deep focus work, to just give myself a bit of a mental break and not feel as overstimulated by so much information.
I hear you on that. It's hard when it feels like you're drinking from a fire hose.
Yes.
of content, and it can be a little overwhelming. I constantly find myself like culling what I'm listening to or subscribe to, because it does get to be at some point too much. But are there any specific newsletters or maybe podcasts that even when you're culling, even when you're unsubscribing and unplugging stuff, you're still like, but I got to keep this one because like this one's always really one of my favorites?
Yes. So I used to host my own podcast called Secrets of Wealthy Women. And so I became very passionate about women's empowerment and financial savvy and just confidence, all of those great things. That podcast has sunsetted, but there's a fantastic podcast, which is related to the general topic, very different show, but it's, and I don't know, can I curse on this? I don't know if I can curse, maybe.
Sure.
Okay. It's called Unfuck Your Brain. And it's by Cara Lowenthal, and it's an excellent podcast for women, especially, but any gender can listen to it. And it's about finding ways to undo stereotypes about women that we as women may carry in our own brains and not even realize the stereotypes that we're falling into. And I have to say, I've listened to a lot of podcasts. This is probably one of the smartest podcasts I've listened to in a very long time. So I definitely recommend that to you. I love that show. And I try to catch it whenever I can. And then in terms of other podcasts that I listen to, another one, it's just funny. It's a little crude, but I love Heather McMahon. She cracks me up. So if I need a good laugh, I'll listen to the Absolutely Not podcast and laugh my way during my commute, which it's also a lot of fun. So
you need some of that.
Yeah,
you need to balance it out.
you need
Are Are there any individuals that you really enjoy? Maybe it's their weekly columns, or maybe you follow them on LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that. Are there any humans that particularly light you up?
Um, for sure. And this is maybe sounding like we're talking our own game a little bit, but I work at the Wall Street Journal. There's some WSJ columnists who I really love when it comes to travel. I enjoyed Dawn Gilbertson's work when it comes to hardcore investing. Jason Zweig. I'm trying to get a bit more tax savvy. It's Laura Saunders. There's so many people who I work with that I grew up reading, and now they're my coworkers. And I'm just like, wow, this is so crazy that I get to work with these folks. But reading their stuff every week or every other week really just helps me feel smarter and better at my job. And so I appreciate so much of their work, and definitely commend all that to all of you.
I love that. Well, as you know, around these parts, we are self-proclaimed nerds. We love us some homework. We love tackling homework, getting homework from smart people such as yourself. So I'm curious if you could give us all a homework assignment to take into the weekend. It could be to listen to something or read something or do a certain exercise or download something. What homework assignment would you give us to complete?
This one I just happened to fall upon, even though I didn't mean to. I recently had some going on along with the tech kind of detox theme. I had phone problems when I was at work one day and computer problems. And so I had to be, as our tech folks were helping me fix it, I had to be offline for about 3 hours. And usually that's pretty impossible during anybody's workday. And so I'm not suggesting it necessarily during the workday. Maybe you do it after work or on the weekends, but 3 full hours of not having any computer access of any type. And I sat there and I read a physical paper, and then I started looking at a book, and I just could not believe how relaxed I felt, not having that constant scroll of Instagram or LinkedIn, everything that we're all addicted to. Just having that mental quiet for me was just so restorative. And so it inspired me to do that on the weekend, and to try to turn off the phone, even when I'm on the playground with my son, turn off the phone for a few hours, just to really be present in the moment, quiet my mind, try to focus on nature, try to focus on my family more fully. And I felt better about myself in terms of my mental health by doing such. So I recommend that if you haven't discovered that yourself already.
Well, that is a great homework assignment. I love any homework assignment that involves turning off. Love that. One of my favorites. If people want to keep learning from you, absorbing all the knowledge that you're putting out into the world, where is the best place for them to continue to learn from you?
The best place, 2 great places, if you follow me on LinkedIn, at Veronica Dagher, or if you ideally subscribe to the Wall Street Journal and follow me there. I have an author page there as well. So you can just click, and then you can see everything that I write or I'm a part of in that way. And I appreciate the interest.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This was awesome. And I feel like I tried to get to as many questions as possible. I know there were some that we couldn't get to, but thank you for joining and asking such smart, tactful, wonderful questions. We appreciate you so much. And look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks again, Veronica.
Thank you for having me, Kim. It was great questions, everybody, and great questions yourself.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.